And so I was talking about the way that a lot of the established and accepted norms that we've had almost since the post-war period have been changing. And that's been changing in politics, obviously, in international relations. The post-war consensus rather breaking down in the way it was. The challenge to an international legal order, which we always thought was well established in recent years, is coming under pressure. And then similarly, on the domestic front in the UK, because I was talking from a UK perspective, some of the issues, for example, about the tensions between Parliament and politicians and the courts and the judges. So how do you maintain the proper balance and the proper independence between those two sectors?
Do you think there's a danger that the separation of powers is at risk of being diluted? I mean, we've seen this become an issue in the UK. It's also a hot topic in Gibraltar at the moment.
I wouldn't dream of commenting upon what's happening in Gibraltar. It's a separate jurisdiction. I think it is important that both sides, both politicians and lawyers, and particularly judges and lawyers and politicians, understand what we call, it's an old-fashioned legal phrase, but important, exclusive cognizance. What belongs to Parliament and what belongs to the courts. The rub sometimes comes when the executive, the government, comes into it. And so a lot of the arguments we've had in the UK are when the courts have struck down decisions, not of Parliament actually, but of the executive. I think we need to restate that separation of powers.
So Bob, let's go back to Downing Street and the scandal that's engulfing the Prime Minister at the moment. We haven't seen the Sue Gray report yet. Two questions about that. First of all, if the Prime Minister is found to have broken the law, would you expect him to resign?
Yes, because he accepts that too. To break the law would be a breach of the ministerial code, and as he fairly and rightly said actually the other day in Parliament, any minister who breaches the ministerial code is expected to offer their resignation.
The other part of that question I'd like to ask you is there is a suggestion that it could be watered down at the request of the Metropolitan Police. I mean, is that something that would be acceptable to you?
What we've got actually is not a change to the contents of the report, but apparently the Met Police saying that any version that is published at the moment should not make reference to certain matters which they themselves are investigating. That of itself is not outrageous because it's absolutely standard procedure that one should never investigate a police do anything which might get in the way of a police investigation, which might therefore prejudice any potential criminal proceedings. But what I am concerned about is that once a decision whether or not there are to be proceedings is taken, and if there are, then those proceedings are concluded, then the whole report must be published.
Well, you're in Gibraltar and you've been updated on Gibraltar matters by the Chief Minister. We've heard an awful lot about Downing Street parties, not so much on treaty negotiations. Can you give us a sense of where things are at the moment?
I've certainly had some useful discussions with colleagues in Gibraltar, which I shall certainly make sure are available to my colleagues in the House of Commons. And I think that will inform our discussions with government. Nothing is in a position we can take it for granted. Nothing is guaranteed. These are still at a very sensitive and important stage. But I do think if we work hard at this, then we can deliver it. And my message to my colleagues back in London is absolutely we must not allow any of the noises off to distract us from our resolve to our commitment to look after the interests of the people of Gibraltar from the UK's perspective.